someone came to me and said, "You're an architect, aren't you?" So I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, congratulations, we've just bought a cruise ship and we want you to fly out there. This cruise ship is moored on the island of Curacao out in the Caribbean. We want you to fly to the ship and look at it, you know, because we want to completely remodel. We're going to spend millions on this ship because this ship is going to be for delivering new OT VIII, which is like the highest level that hasn't even been released yet."
Now this is a operating Thetan level.
Yeah, and they said this level can only be done, Hubbard has written, this level is so powerful, so amazing that it can, and it's so confidential, it can't even be done on land. It can't even be done on land. It has, Hubbard wrote, it has to be done on a ship in the middle of the ocean so that nothing can upset it, you know, away from all the interbulation of like society.
Interbulation?
Interbulation meaning, you know, even though you might have an organization in a city, you know, there's traffic, there are cops, there are things that upset, you know, society impacts it, you know. But OT VIII is so delicate, nothing can be in distraction, so it has to be done in the middle of the ocean on a ship.
Now at this point, how much auditing had you had by now?
I had, pretty much all I had was what I had in London.
So you weren't up to these OT levels?
Oh no, nowhere, not even close.
So you still had the idea, did you still have the same idea that you had started with, that there were these wonderful powers that people could attain?
Oh yes, I mean I would look at the people at the sandcastle who were doing like OT VI and VII.
That's where people, Scientologists, come and stay and fly.
Right, and I would even interview them to see if everything was okay, you know, that was my job. And I was like, oh my God, these people are so cool, and if only I knew what they knew, if only I was doing what they were doing. And they seemed so kind of calm, and you know, they seemed, nothing would upset them, you know, they were like, they seemed such calm. I had so much admiration for them, I thought, I just can't wait to get to these levels, you know, and these people are so, and you know, out in the world they were like chiropractors, and you know, and they had businesses, and they just seemed so they seemed different from other people. So I still had the whole thing up on a plateau, you know, where this all will be worthwhile because we're making these people who are going to solve all of society's problems. So I thought, I was kind of reinvigorated. I thought, wow, this is such an important ship, you know, and OT VIII is so important because it's going to solve all the world's problems, you know. I really thought once OT VIII start being made, the problems the world has with war and communism and poverty, I thought this would all vanish, you know. I can't even begin to think, I don't even want to go now. It's difficult for me to go to where my mind was at. I kind of shut it off. I think, did I really think that? I can't even go. You know, it's like walking down a long dark corridor and then you walk down it and you think, did I really believe that stuff? Yes, I did at the time, I believed it. But I don't even now, I don't want to go there. I don't want to admit to you that I believe these people could do all that.
It's like looking at a different person.
Yeah, exactly. And now I know what I know about the true nature of the OT levels. And I'm like, this is what it is, and this is where I had it. I can't even go to where I thought it was so wonderful, because then I start to think, you're an idiot, you're a moron. Like, do you have a brain? Like, I can't believe that I was so gullible. I can't, it's difficult, you know. So anyway, I said, yeah, oh, if I can help with that ship, that is the coolest thing. So I flew to the ship, I looked at it, and then, you know, it was like a huge cruise ship. It was like a 13,000 ton cruise ship, 400 foot long, 450 feet long, moored in secret on this island. So I would fly to Miami, and then we would take like a secret flight to Curacao. We arrived in the middle of the night, and we were like driven kind of undercover to this cruise ship. And
Why was it in such secrecy?
Because they told me that, you know, if ever they dared to bring this ship into United States waters, it would be immediately confiscated against taxes, and you know, the United States authorities would seize it as church assets against back taxes.
But why were they telling you something like that?
Because I think they wanted to explain to me the shroud of secrecy. You know, I signed what's called a bond, which means I would immediately give them $10,000 if I revealed the location of the ship. So I'm going, well, come on, guys. You know,
But I mean, why would they feel safe about telling you that there were back taxes? Why would they tell you something like that?
I don't know. I guess they had to come up with some kind of thing for the secrecy that would be would satisfy me.
But what I'm saying is, why would they think you would keep that secret for them?
Well, because I'd signed a bond. You know, any information that I released about the ship, I would immediately have to pay $10,000. You know, the location, why it was there. You know, anything. If I revealed any confidential information about it.
Did it ever occur to you that the authorities in the United States should know that this ship was sitting there?
I would never have dreamed of that, you know.
Because you're now protecting Scientology at all costs.
Right. You know, so like all through the immigration and leaving the United States and coming back in, we weren't to mention it. You know, if we were going to Curacao as tourists, you know, we weren't to mention the Freewinds. So anyway, the night I arrived, like late at night, and in a veil of secrecy, I mean, I thought I was James Bond, James Bond, you know, like on a mission. It was so cool, you know, and then you see this huge ship there, and you go, oh my God, the church is so powerful. They have this huge ship they just go out and buy, and like they are just unbelievable. What they can do anything, you know, and this is the ship that is going to save the world. And here I am, arriving at this ship, you know, oh my God, it was so cool, you know, and
Incredible,
yeah, and so anyway, I sleep that night in a cabin. The next day, I'm with this guy called Steve Kazaki, who's like he's in charge of all the renos on the ship. So I meet him. Renovations. I think actually I flew out with him. And he says, well, you know, so they have all these sketches by interior designers, like little sketches on bits of paper. And these are like sacred sketches prepared by like the LRH architect. They have a guy called Barry Stein and his girlfriend, whose name Carol, someone or other, and they are the LRH architect and the LRH assistant architect. I find out they're not actually licensed architects, therefore it's not legal for them to call themselves architects, but, you know, whatever.
But hey.
But hell, it's like, so, anyway. So they show me all these sketches and say, you know, this is the ship now. The ship is just like squalid. It's called La Boheme or something. And it's just like ugly, you know, like brown carpet, blue chairs, green curtains. And it's obviously, it looks like it hasn't seen a lick of paint in 50 years. It's just like, the cabins are just ugly, you know. It's like, you know, what kind of people would go cruising on a ship like this? It's like just horrible, you know. If you compare it to like the QE2 or like, you know, a cruise ship in Miami like Carnival Cruise Lines, it's just a joke. Inside it's so squalid. But they have all these sketches of all these beautiful rooms, of, you know, beautiful restaurants. And, you know, they have like, the restaurant is on like the lower level deck and it overlooks all the winches and the anchor and it's just ugly, you know. And they say, this is going to be the new OT VIII course room. But we're going to take the restaurant up 3 decks to, you know, so it has a great view out to sea. And I go, well, there's a little problem, you know, the galley is down here where the old restaurant was. And the new restaurant is going to be up with the view, but hey, where's the kitchen, guys? They go, yeah, good point. Okay, we'll put in like an elevator to take all the food up. So I'm going, well, you know, a big restaurant, you know, because I've worked on restaurants in England, you know. I say, well, you know, the way you plan in architecture, you have the dining room, you have the kitchen, and you know, there's constant traffic in and out, in and out. You don't send the food up in elevators, flying off the elevator. Come on, guys. Like, why don't you keep the restaurant down here? And, you know, so I'm like being creative with it. I'm like being an architect. I'm saying, okay, guys, come on, keep the restaurant down here next to the kitchen. There's no space up there for the kitchen. You know, function, because I'm going back to my architecture. I'm back being an architect. Come on, guys, let me tell you how it's done here. You know, it's a ship, but hey, it's like a building.
Yeah.
And I go, the course room can be anywhere. Who cares about the course room? You know, let's put the course room up there. And they go, hey, you don't understand. Let me explain to you the way it is. These drawings are all approved, these sketches are approved by the upper management, by David Miscavige himself.
We aren't going to change them now.
These drawings are cast in stone. You don't come on here, you know, and be an architect and start telling us how to do this. We are telling you, this is how it's going to be done. You just have to figure it out. You don't come in here being creative, like throwing in your little ideas of like how it should function and offering little hints, you know. That is not what we want. You need to work out how to get these sketches reality. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, you know, I'm not used to working like this as an architect. I'm used to, like, I'm respected, you know. In England, I would go into meetings with, like, I worked for Gillette, and I would see the boss of Gillette, and he would say, okay, Lawrence, you know, we want to do a factory. How can we make this function? Well, I go, okay, well, the trucks arrive here, you unload here, you know, we'll do the injection molding here. This was with the boss of Gillette UK. I'd be like working with him, and I would be respected. And he would say, you're the architect, this is what we want, you know, we'll pay you thousands for this, you know, and it's a cool job. I loved it.
Yeah.
Now I'm on this ship and I'm, you know, saying, okay, guys, you need to rethink this. This isn't functioning, you know. And almost on every level, you know, they had like, I'm going, you know, you can't have a course room next to a kitchen, you know, the noise from the kitchen will disturb the course room. You can't have a restaurant not next to a kitchen, you can't get the food to the restaurant, guys. You know, like, you can't have offices, you know, next to cabins, you know. I'm like taught all about function and planning, and these people have no idea.
Right.
But they won't listen to me, you know. I'm just like you know, I'm like not even an officer in the Sea Org, and like, you know, these people are like lieutenants and captains in the Sea Org. So even though they know nothing about architecture, nothing about design, I'm like nobody to them, except, oh, but you do have this one use, you can draw plans.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this little use, but you just do your little thing and don't bother us. Mm-hmm. But we need you. So I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this. And anyway, and then it's not before long, the guy Reynolds I see is like a kind of a cabinet guy. We're in a cabin.
Now the Reynolds I see means renovations in charge.
He's in charge of the renovation project.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not used to having people be in charge of me as an architect. You know, I'm the architect, I'm in charge of construction.
Right.
I tell contractors what to do. He's telling me what to do, I don't like it, but whatever. You have to, you know. So anyway, he says, let's find out what these walls are made of in a cabin. So he grabs a hammer and he pounds it, he smashes into this wall. I see this blue powdery substance, particles flying. I go, Steve, stop, you know. I'm pretty damn sure that's asbestos. And I'm like, uh-oh, because I've learned all about asbestos in architecture school. And I go, uh-oh, you're releasing it, let's do something, let's seal it up, let's get the hell out of here. Like, I'm freaking, panic mode, because I've been in factories in England with asbestos. If they find asbestos, they freak out. The whole thing's closed down because, okay, one little particle of asbestos is microscopically like a little fishing hook. Mm-hmm. And we were releasing probably millions of these particles. And then one little particle, you breathe it in, it hooks into the lining of your lung, and then there's no way, the lung can't flush it out. It's hooked in with a little barbed hook. The lung can't flush it out with mucus or anything. And there it's there, and then, as I understood it, medical research said one little particle 20 years later, you've got lung cancer. One particle. And we've just released...
It's a carcinogen.
It's a carcinogen, yeah. Like, you know, they used to use it all the time because it's a great insulator, it's a great material, it's, you know, but then they replaced, they never used asbestos in England anymore since the 70s. because it's one of the deadliest materials known to man. It's like, and
so what do you do if you have a building or a ship with asbestos?
It's either that building is immediately sealed off with plastic sheets, with airlocks, and then they're called in a special asbestos abatement company, licensed and totally specialists, and they would wear spacesuits, with respirators and air tanks, and they would remove every last particle of it, dispose of it in proper bags, and then it will go to a special hazardous materials dump. And then, then the building would be certified asbestos free, and then we could, then you'd have to use new insulation materials, asbestos free, and unbelievably expensive. But then, no company wants to own a building that is full of asbestos that, people can sue them, and,
What about a ship? What do you do about a ship?
I didn't know at that point, what would you do? And so then I'm walking around the ship and I go into the engine room and I see panels missing from like the control room, a panel missing, and I see a big chunk of blue asbestos hanging down. What I identify as blue asbestos. Now in my lectures in England, they told us that there's the deadliest form of asbestos is called blue asbestos. And I don't know if I'm being exactly technical correct or if the terms are the same in America, but I believe they colored it blue especially to show that it was hazardous. It's not blue, it's painted, it's dyed blue. Mm-hmm. And they said, if white asbestos, microscopically, one hook, it's like one little fishing hook. Blue asbestos is like a barbed ball of like hundreds of hooks, one particle. So if the one hook gets into your lungs and it doesn't hook on, the barb has hooks in all directions and it's going to hook on. So that's like the most deadly.
Dangerous.
It's even more dangerous. So I'm like, okay, so I said, I will find the chief engineer on the ship, who's a guy called Wack Alcock. I think he was from New Zealand. And he will know. So I go to him and I say, sir, you have asbestos in your engine room just hanging there. And he says, it's not asbestos. I'm the engineer. It is not asbestos.
What did he say it was?
I said, yeah. So he said, it's just insulation. So, okay, I can't believe this. So, and I'm like beginning to question my own education. I'm pretty damn sure. I've been to lectures on it, and they've shown it to us in class. Like,
so, were there any plans for this ship?
Yeah, I then went, into his office, and I found a full set of blueprints. The ship had been built in Finland, I think, in 1968, and they're a full set of blueprints. I pull them out. I think, blueprints, at last, I know what I'm doing. And then, but it's all in Finnish. Whatever language, I believe Finnish. But then asbestos is the same. So then asbestos, like all
You're
of the...
seeing this written on
I see the word
plans?
Asbestos, like, they've got a section through the ship showing all the walls, and they're saying asbestos with an arrow. So it's on the underside of every deck.
So it is asbestos?
It is asbestos.
It's blue asbestos in this ship?
Everywhere. Sprayed on when the ship was in the shipyard. They built the steel... They built the hull and then they just spray it.
Now, isn't asbestos so deadly that, it's actually illegal to have any asbestos at all in a structure where people are going to be?
Right, exactly so, yeah. And it's, back in England, they made it like a criminal offence to knowingly have asbestos, particles released into the air. If you do it by accident, then, but as soon as you knowingly release it or don't do anything about it, you can, it's a prison term, a huge fine.
Well, and these people knew, they had the
also in
plans.
California, in the whole of the United States, it's the same. Very, very serious, So I've been schooled in this, you see asbestos, you like scream and get it handled,
and get out of there.
And get out of there, yeah. And so anyway, I was running around going, asbestos, asbestos, everyone run. And they're going, whoa.
Can't believe it.
And they won't listen to me.
So this chief engineer, Wack Alcock, said it's not asbestos?
He said, it is not asbestos. He said, I'm the chief engineer, blah, blah, blah. I knew it was, I had no question in my mind. And then I saw the blueprints. So then about this time, a lady called Bitty Miscavige, who was like...
now, Bitty Miscavige is married to David Miscavige's brother, Ronnie, isn't she?
And she was like, I think, Commander Bitty Miscavige.
She's a Commodore's messenger.
Yeah, she was
in the
like
CMO.
In the CMO organization, and she was, you know, with a fancy uniform. She was in overall charge of everything to do with the ship, over the captain, over everything. So she arrived at the ship. So I go up to her and say, "Sir, you know, I think you have a problem with this ship, you know." I mean, and like people, she's like looking at me like, "You're telling me I have a problem?" Because that isn't the way in the Sea Org. You don't walk up to a high-ranking Sea Org officer and say, "You have a problem." You say, "There was a problem, but I have solved it." You really can't walk up to someone and say, "You have a problem." But that wasn't the way I was used to operating.
Right.
I would just, you know, hey, if the boss of Gillette UK has a problem, I'll say, call him out and say, "You have a problem."
Right.
And you say, "Hey, thanks for telling me."
Right.
Because, you know, I don't want there to be a problem running out of control. I want to know.
Right.
And she's like, "You're telling me I have a problem? Who are you?" And I'm going, "Well, I'm an architect from England." She didn't even know who I was. "I'm an architect from England, and I want you to look at these blueprints." And she says, "Oh," she said, "you know," she said, "doesn't asbestos cause cancer?" And I'm going, finally I've got through to someone. You know, finally they're going to like address this problem.
Yeah.
Because I'm
And
saying,
get everybody off this ship.
yeah, get everyone off the ship, and then, you know, to me it's over. You know, like they've got a big problem.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's over, and finally I brought it to attention of Bitty Miscavige, and finally this is a person sufficiently senior to like do something about it. And then so she says, "We'll have a meeting, we'll bring these blueprints, Steve Kosaki, the chief engineer, the captain, we're all sitting around a table." And she actually is pretty sympathetic. She's a little freaked out. She is like, "Oh my," she's like, "What are we going to do, guys? What are we going to do?" And so Steve Kosaki and the chief engineer say, "Well, you know, we've studied the LRH advices and policies on the ship. He was a captain in the US Navy. LRH, you know, knew ships. He knew everything about ships, and we exactly implement all of his policies and all of his advices. He hasn't said anything about asbestos being a problem, and obviously asbestos was a problem back on those ships. And then, but he did mention fiberglass as like being like, fiberglass is like long needles microscopically, and it can irritate you, and you can breathe it in, and it's nasty. So, sir, Mr. Miscavige, sir, we have ripped all of the fiberglass out of the ship, and sure enough, there's a big pile of fiberglass on the dock." And I'm going, "Well, excuse me, you know, excuse me? Fiberglass isn't hazardous. You know, fiberglass is commonly used as insulation in buildings, and no one says it's a problem." And I said, "If you rip it all out of the decks, you know, and you're out in the hot Caribbean sun, the sun's going to come beating straight through the steel walls and deck. Maybe you should put it all back." And they're like, with me, like, this guy is like, got a couple of screws loose. Okay, they say, you know.
They're looking at you like you have screws loose.
I'm like a nutcase. They're going, you know, and they say, "You just don't know Scientology. You just don't know what you're talking about." You know,
What's
Hubbard
Scientology
Hubbard has said fiberglass is the problem. He said nothing about asbestos. So we've taken all the fiberglass out. So I said, "You know, you've like, I don't even know what I said. You've like removed the few mice walking around the ship, but you left the dragon, you know, running around breathing fire." And they're going, they're just like exasperated with me. And I said, "Look," I said, "Hubbard wrote his policies." I said, "He probably wasn't even aware of medical research into asbestos." And they're going, "Hubbard wasn't aware? What are you saying?" Like,
Impossible.
impossible. You know, like they said, "No, Hubbard," the chief engineer and this guy Kazaki say, "If Hubbard didn't say asbestos was a problem, it is not a problem." Besides, Hubbard, you know, Hubbard knew all about cancer, and he said cancer was caused by sexual misconduct, not asbestos. And that's what we follow. So Bitty Miscavige is like, "Phew, guys, what a relief. I thought we were going to have a problem, but it's all cool." And she turns to me and says, "Lawrence, do you now understand the way it is? You know, and like my mind is reeling, because on the one hand there's like my education.
And did they also, were they also feeling that because they were Scientologists it wasn't going to harm them?
The thought that, you know, you don't understand, the people coming to this ship are going to be on the highest level of, you know, they're going to be OT-8s. You could probably hit them on the head with a hammer and it wouldn't hurt them. You know, they are like so above the physical universe. And this is so theta that like these people are practically invincible, you know.
So that the asbestos won't bother them anyway.
Won't be a problem.
But what about all the crew members of this ship?
You know, I never even, to that day, I never even thought about that. They're not, I never thought about that. Good point. Well, they were the ones with long-term exposure too.
Mm-hmm. So what happened?
Okay, so after that meeting, asbestos was no longer a problem. And then they started the renovation work. They ripped into the ship, you know. Like I said, they were moving restaurants to different decks, putting in elevators, just ripped. It was just ripped apart. And then, you know, like, there was all new electrical, so every time that was attached to the underside of deck. So, you know, you can't, it would have to be supported by brackets. So every time you did that, you would screw into the asbestos, through the asbestos into the steel. They put in all new air conditioning, so every time you put in a new duct, you know, you rip out the asbestos.
So this is just asbestos flying everywhere in this ship now?
And yeah, it was all new plumbing. The old plumbing, they used like salt water to flush the toilets on the ship, which was kind of gross. So all the pipes are corroded. It was just dripping everywhere. This ship was squalid. And it was, so asbestos, they would just scrape it away, you know, with no mask, no nothing. Just, people would be covered in blue.
Oh my God.
Just, people would be just covered in blue asbestos. And one guy even, I said to him, asbestos, asbestos, and he even picked it up. I said, it's not a problem. He picked it up and bit it.
No.
And it just, you know, anyway, I don't know, I put it out of my mind.
These people are all now terribly
They
at
think
risk
they're
for
protected
cancer.
by the policies of L. Ron Hubbard, and they're invincible. So then anyway...
including you. You're now at risk
I was
as
never
well.
happy with it. I just shut up like I had on so many other things, you know. So then anyway, they fell behind with the work. It was falling behind schedule. That they wanted to release OT VIII, so they hired a ship fitting company out of England, Southampton, England, who worked mostly in Miami on refitting cruise ships. So then, you know, they had a contract with these people. They all flew out to the ship. They were all non-Scientologists, you know, it was a WOG ship refit company. And then, you know, I'd drawn up the plans by then. So they arrived on the ship. They flipped. They saw asbestos everywhere. And it was like a major public relations problem for the ship. And they couldn't just fob off these guys and say, well, L. Ron Hubbard says. Because it, you know, they're used to ships. They knew what they were talking about.
Well, I mean, when these people came and voiced the same concerns that you had voiced, did Bitty Miscavige or Whack Alcock or any of these people then come to you and say, maybe you're right?
No, 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 no. They never said that. But they, at the same time, they had to address it because, you know, they didn't want like a big public relations flat with this like non-Scientology company, possibly reporting them, threatening to just immediately pull off the project, which they did. You know, they threatened to immediately pull off. And so they, you know, I mean, I think this company, by rights, they should have just pulled off because they had the health of their guys to consider. And I know their workmen were freaked because they knew all about asbestos. So anyway, they finally negotiated and negotiated and they worked out a handling. They came up with like, any time asbestos was uncovered on the ship, they wouldn't just hack into it. They had a little crew they made up of about 4 guys wearing like, you know...
4 guys from this company?
No, 4 guys who were SEAL members.
Oh,
SEAL
4
members.
Scientologists.
And they would like wrap themselves in sheets and they would put like, you know, disposable masks on you used for like...
But
so you
that
don't
doesn't
breathe
protect
into,
you from asbestos.
No, no. And they were armed with spray bottles of water and paint, spray paint. And so they would run over to the asbestos problem where it had been exposed and spray it.
But that doesn't resolve it, does it?
No, but you see, it's better because the fiberglass is really, I mean, asbestos is really dangerous when it's dry and flaking and airborne. It goes airborne, the particles. So, but now if it's wet, if it's in a bucket of water, you know, it can't become airborne.
Or if you spray the wall.
If you spray the
it
wall,
will temporarily,
it temporarily is wet.
Temporarily.
You wet it down, and then if you spray paint it.
And this company was willing to subject its people to that kind of danger?
Well, you know, they'd signed a contract probably worth $400,000 or $500,000.
But those
they're
people,
committed to it.
But those people are now at grave risk.
Yes.
From exposure to asbestos.
Yes.
Do you remember the name of that company?
I believe it was based in Southampton. I believe it was called like CCL or something. I can find it out. CCL.
They should be alerted.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they knew. They knew. So I don't know. They had like rather secretive negotiations with them. I don't know if they offered them more money. I don't know how they, because when they came to the ship, they were outraged. And then they were going to pull off, and then they agreed to work on the ship, but you know, under the conditions that if, you know, when the asbestos was found, these guys would run over and spray it and wet it.
So they finished their project?
No, I wouldn't say. I would say that things went badly with them, and no, they, you know, the ship. Their workers were extremely unhappy. I mean, I remember they would sleep in the cabins wearing these dust masks, you know, and I remember talking to the workers, and they're going, they were English, you know, I was English, they were English, and we were kind of friends, and they were befuddled, you know, like they were worried about their health, they were worried about our health. They were like, if this is Scientology, what are you people doing? And they were like, we want out of here. They were so unhappy, so unhappy. And they were like, we've got wives and kids, you know. So I would say they just stayed a few weeks, and then things fell apart, you know. There were arguments about the work, the materials weren't arriving on time. There were a number of factors, but they left. They left in October
and this
1987.
Is 1987.
Yeah. And the ship was so far from complete. It wasn't, you know, they did hardly any work, really. It was so far from complete. So then the people running the ship had this bright idea: let us recruit from Los Angeles, from Clearwater, from anywhere in the United States, Scientology carpenters, metal workers, plumbers, electricians. Let us have our own work crew of, like, not SEAL members, but public Scientologists, anyone who's to do with contracting. Let us bring these people on the ship. We'll pay, you know, they'll get full room and board and stay in the cabins. And then they will be paid like $800 a week tax-free, you know, because it's in the Caribbean. And they will work and finish the ship. And then they were controllable because they were Scientologists. You know, they couldn't. They had ways to control them. You know, they are not allowed to sue the church. There is no legal recourse if you're a Scientologist unless you agree to be kicked out of the church.
Did any of these people ever voice an objection to being subjected to asbestos?
No, they didn't seem remotely worried about it. I mean, some of them, I don't know.
Were they told? Were they aware of it?
No one pointed it out to them, for sure. No one said, look, this is asbestos, guys. Time to freak out. But some of them, as they worked in construction, I can't imagine, didn't know.
Did you ever tell anybody?
I don't think I ever told. I don't think I discussed it with them.
Do you remember any of the names of these people?
Yes, yeah, I do. I mean, I could reconstruct a list.
They should be warned.
They should be warned, yeah. They should be, and there were maybe 100 of them. So anyway, they then got to work, and the ship was just finished up. And then, you know, all the new furnitures arrived, new carpet, all the stuff arrived, air freighted from Miami, brought on the island. And then all the paneling was put back. But, you know, for example, the decks would have like long corridors, and then, you know, you'd have the steel deck, and then you'd have the layer of asbestos, and all the pipes running in that, and then you'd have like a false ceiling with more asbestos tiles in like a metal, supported in a metal grid, and that would be the finish that you'd see. But this wasn't airtight, you know, there'd be like channels and the ceiling would sit in it. It's not airtight, so all the asbestos flaking and falling apart was out of sight, but you know, it would be leaking through these panels. And then a ship at sea, you know, I mean, I went to sea in that ship, it shuddered, it shook, it vibrated, you know. Ships, it's like an aircraft, it shakes, it rattles. So all of that asbestos that's been tampered with is loose, shaking to this day. You know, and then of course on a ship they're always doing repair work, so they take the panels down, you know, fix the pipe, put the panel back.
This is just horrible.
It's horrible, it's a nightmare.
So everybody who goes onto the Freewinds to do OT VIII is at deadly risk of cancer from asbestos.
Yes.
How is it that that no health inspectors have discovered this, or has the ship never come back into U.S. waters?
No, the ship never ever comes into U.S. waters. It sails to a few islands in the Caribbean. I believe it's been up to Ensenada, Mexico.
But you know, David Miscavige in senior management, someone in management or one of their attorneys must be aware of this asbestos danger.
Well, yes, they would. I mean, I was on the ship when Miscavige and all those people would come to it. You know, they would come to it before the renovations were complete, and they would come in the company of Bitty Miscavige, and so you know they could see the whole thing ripped apart. So whether Bitty chose to tell them or...
She must have reported this.
Yes, I would say so.
So they all know.
I would say they definitely do know, yes. And it horrifies me to think of hundreds of public who go on vacation and go to do courses who are being subjected to this risk without their permission, you know, without, like, if I said to you, Stacey, let's go visit Chernobyl, you'd say, wait a minute, that's a nuclear power station that exploded and is like contaminated for the next 1,000 years. I choose not to go there.
Right.
But people would, and as far as I'm concerned, asbestos is as dangerous as radioactive contamination. Maybe even worse. But like, and if they said to someone, hey, come and cruise on this ship, you know, you are going to be exposed to contamination that can cause you cancer, do you still want to come? It's a no-brainer, but of course people don't know. You know,
it's just horrible.
Would you come with your asbestos testing equipment, meters and laboratories? No.
How would a person know if they've been endangered, if this asbestos is in their lungs?
Well, I believe that, I'm not sure medically, you know, I'm not trained in medicine, but I believe you can have a particular type of X-ray on which these particles would show up. And so I would suggest, you know, I'm still worried about it to this day because I was on the ship for a year in the worst periods, and I still, you know, go on the internet and read about the hazards of asbestos, and I think, well, should I go for an X-ray? And then I have nightmares of dying of the horror, how horrible it must be to die of lung cancer. And I know, for example, that if you smoke, I've read that, you know, if you're exposed to asbestos, don't smoke, because that can make it even worse. So I never smoke, and I avoid any other kind of lung contamination. But of course I live in LA with smog, you know. But now I'm thinking, you know, I should, part of me doesn't want to know. I don't want to know how much asbestos do I have in my lungs. You know, because I have 2 daughters and a granddaughter. I don't want to die in 10 years of lung cancer. I don't. Part of me, I don't even want to know. But part of me says I should go and have it checked, you know, because maybe they can be removed or flushed out, or maybe, you know, I take antioxidants, and I take vitamin E, and I take, you know, but I mean, I know that like antioxidants help you with free radicals in food. Can they do anything about little microscopic hooks in your lungs? You know, and if I feel short of breath or something, I think, uh-oh, is it my time? You know, it's like, I live with it, and then all those other people there live with it. You know, they don't even know. You know, so I'm thinking now when I go back to LA, I will get tested. You know, maybe they have advanced technology body testing. I don't know.
I think you should.
I would like to know.